The city lights blurred across the rain-slicked window of the black Mercedes. Outside, the drizzle tapped gently like the man's heartbeat in the back seat. Michael Langston, CEO of Langston Enterprises, stared intently at the thick contract on his lap. 208 pages, a maze of legalese tangled clauses, and, more critically, a looming threat poised to consume the empire he had spent 2 decades building. "Next stop?" the driver asked, glancing back as a red light paused the car amid a crowd of pedestrians with umbrellas. Michael didn't answer immediately. His breath was longer than usual. His eyes remained fixed on the tiny printed text, too small, perhaps intentionally to deceive tired eyes. Then he exhaled. "Somewhere close, with coffee and chairs." His voice was gravelly and heavy, like cold steel. The driver checked the rearview mirror and nodded. Rosie's Diner, nearby. Not fancy, but quiet. Michael smirked. "I don't need linen tablecloths, I need oxygen for my brain." 3 minutes later, the car pulled to a diner with a weather-worn red sign. "Rosie's, open 24/7. Its foggy windows glowed with soft yellow light. A breath of warmth in the storm of circumstance. The kind of place no one would suspect to become the site of a seismic shift in value and power. Inside, it was nearly empty. A nurse tapped away at her phone beside a cold cup of tea. 2 truckers silently chewed on burgers. And behind the counter, a young woman with neatly tied brown hair wiped down tables with swift, practiced movements. Her eyes flicked toward the door as Michael entered. No one recognized him. No one cared. And strangely, he felt lighter for it. Michael chose a table by the window and spread the contract across the aged plastic surface. His Mont Blanc pen stabbed into the pages, furious annotations. Force majeure, vague. Post-merger liability, who owns it? Stock trap, clause 14.3a. Legal jargon wrapped around him like barbed wire. A glass was set down gently beside him, snapping him out of thought. "Rough night?" A woman's voice, not too soft, not too curious, just enough not to intrude. Michael didn't look up. "You don't want to know?" She didn't leave. Sometimes saying it out loud helps you breathe easier. Now he looked up. The same girl from earlier. Simple uniform, voice warm like an old espresso machine, and eyes not sparkly with charm, but weighed with stories lived beyond her age. "What are you, a therapist now?" She smiled. "Number, just someone who listens well, and reads people better than most." He folded his arms, raising an eyebrow. "What do you see in me?" A smart man, stuck, angry with himself for not understanding the one thing he thought he'd mastered. Michael chuckled for the first time that night, half amused, half skeptical. Then try translating this. He pushed a stack of pages toward her. "Company merger, $2 billion. I've got a team of Harvard lawyers still lost in it." She sat down without hesitation. "All right, let me try." Michael waited for the stumble, the confusion, or the flicker of fear that usually followed dense contracts. But nothing. She picked it up like a dinner menu and flipped a few pages. Her brow furrowed, not in confusion, but in calculation. 1 minute, then 2. "Clause 12b, indemnification," she said, eyes still scanning. "It puts all liability on your side if Synergy's tech fails post-merger. They're walking away clean." Michael tilted his head slightly. "Go on." "Clause 8.4a, escrow. They're demanding $500 million in reserve, locked until every KPI is hit. With your current timeline, you'll run out of cash by Q3. He exhaled audibly. "Who are you?" She looked up, smiled slightly, and pulled a small notebook from her apron pocket, crammed with notes, logic trees, encryption formulas. Just someone who likes untangling things others overlook. Michael leaned back, eyes glued to the worn notebook. Inside, rows of meticulous handwriting. Not scribbles, but structured logic, mind maps, handwritten code with a purpose. She hadn't just read the contract, she had analyzed it, internally. You really understand those clauses? She didn't look up. Well enough to spot when someone's being made to carry risk they don't see. And you've been working here, how long? 3 years. Before that? College, computer science, but my mother got sick. My little brother needed tuition. Michael nodded slowly, for the first time, not out of habit, but in genuine respect. Do you have a name, or should I call you mystery genius in an apron? She laughed. Grace Harper. He repeated it, like committing it to strategic memory. Grace. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The overhead lights cast shadows across the fatigue lining Grace's eyes. Not from the night shift, but from years carried silently. Are you planning to go back to school? Grace shook her head. No time, but I study every night, self-taught, free courses, open source, Stack Overflow. Michael let out a short laugh. So you broke down a $2 billion contract with free internet resources. Not just that. She smiled. Also by eavesdropping on execs yelling into their phones for 3 years. That made Michael pause longer. She wasn't just smart, she had learned silently, observed patterns, waited for a moment, and never sought attention. It was a kind of competence he rarely saw outside of overfunded startups. He looked at the contract again. The words no longer suffocated him, thanks to Grace. She had seen through the tricks his legal team had missed. Grace stood and topped off his coffee without asking. I can come back later if you want to keep working. Michael said abruptly. Do you have a project? She paused, not startled, just surprised someone asked with genuine interest. I do, just a small app. Been coding it at night for a while. No name yet. It's kind of like a secure communication tool for small groups. No ads, no tracking. Michael leaned in, eyes sharper. Show me. Grace hesitated, then pulled out her phone. She launched a basic interface. White background, a few buttons, but the logic flow was seamless. Real-time sync, smart grouping, end-to-end encryption. Michael saw what high-paid UX designers often missed, empathetic simplicity. It didn't just look good, it understood the user. He looked up. Grace, do you know you just saved me hundreds of millions? She smiled faintly. I just hate seeing people get outmaneuvered by fine print. He stopped. There was something in him, foreign and unaccustomed, gratitude, and deep respect. Grace, have you ever felt like you weren't good enough? She shook her head. I just thought people wouldn't see me. Michael nodded slowly, almost whispering. Then today, they'll have no choice but to call to action number 1, natural prompt for comments. At this point, maybe someone listening to this story has been in Grace's shoes, knowing your worth but never being given the chance to prove it. If you've experienced that or seen someone overcome it, I'd love to read your story. Because maybe, just maybe, your story is what someone else needs to keep going. Michael knew he couldn't waste another second. In his world of negotiation, IP battles, ROI metrics, and financial leverage, people like Grace weren't just rare. They were the foundation for the revolution. Grace, he said, voice lower than usual. You don't have to wait for someone to see you anymore. I want to invest in your app. I want you to be the lead architect. Everything I have will be at your disposal. Grace didn't blink, But instead of being flattered or flustered, she met his gaze with calm scrutiny, like someone who had heard too many promises and learned how to survive disappointment. "And in return?" she asked. Michael paused. "I figured, we split equity fairly. I bring the capital, you bring the intellect. Maybe," she shook her head, "number. I'm not talking about money, I'm asking, what do I have to give up?" That's when he truly understood. Grace didn't need saving. She needed respect. "Nothing," he said, "except to believe the world won't change, unless someone like you steps forward without asking for permission." A long breath passed. Grace sat down and wiped a coffee stain from the table with a worn cloth. The diner seemed to fall still. Outside, the city still roared under sirens and rain, but here, a decision was being made. Quietly. "I'll still work here until the beta launches," she said. "I don't like leaving things unfinished." Michael said nothing. "And I don't want engineers hired based on their degrees. I want to choose people for how they think." Michael nodded. "You'll have full control." Grace looked him dead in the eye. "And if I see you treat anyone the way you treated me at first, deal's off." For the first time in years, Michael didn't hear a threat. He heard a condition that would make him better. A week later, the merger contract with Synergy was redrafted, Clause 14.3a eliminated, the escrow broken into phases, and Clause 12b rewritten in Langston's favor. For the first time in months, the legal team had to admit they'd been outmaneuvered by a waitress in sneakers. As for Grace, she became a quiet legend within the company, though no one outside knew her name. Not yet. The following weeks were surreal. Michael, the orderly CEO, got used to Grace's chaotic code, and Grace, used to clearing plates, now led virtual meetings with top software engineers. Michael learned to be quiet in meetings, learned to listen to a woman with no degree, but a vision no PowerPoint had ever captured. And then the system went live. The prototype of ConnectFear ran smoothly. No crashes, no leaks. Grace didn't celebrate. She simply said, "Let's try it with real people." They started with the overlooked night shift nurses, delivery drivers, rural teachers, and families split across states. Every piece of feedback didn't make Grace proud. It made her code again, simpler, clearer. So no one needed a manual. Call to action number 2, gentle invitation to subscribe. There's something in the way Grace writes code that feels like she's speaking for people. If you've ever felt like tech wasn't made for you, or brilliance only lives far away in unreachable places, maybe this is a place where you'll feel safe. I keep telling stories like this for those who don't need to prove who they are, just need someone to hear them at the right time. 6 months after that night at Rosie's, tech news feeds buzzed with new names, but none louder than Grace Harper. No flashy LinkedIn profile. No big TV interviews. No studio portraits. Just a short clip from an internal seminar where she explained end-to-end encryption in terms a store clerk could understand. The video spread fast, not for its technical genius, but for the calm voice of a woman who knew what she was talking about and didn't need to prove it. Michael sat in the back row that day, no speech, no spotlight, just watching something he once didn't believe in. A genius stepping out of the shadows without needing anyone to shine a light. ConnectFear passed 10 million downloads in 90 days. Companies replaced Slack. Families ditched Messenger. Rural teachers finally had a tool that didn't spy on them. Grace didn't buy a fancy car or penthouse. She still brewed coffee the slow way. Still wore the same canvas shoes from her diner days. But one thing changed. She donated 30% of her monthly income to fund scholarships for first-year engineering students who couldn't afford to continue. She said, I don't want to be the exception. I want others to keep walking the path I had to leave. Meanwhile, Michael, the man who once thought credentials were everything, quietly rewrote his company's hiring policies. No more Ivy League-only pipelines, no GPA minimums. Instead, one creative problem-solving test. Anyone who thought differently, who saw what others missed, got a chance. He visited job fairs at community colleges, met welders, drivers, and former line cooks. Strangely enough, those people were pushing Langston Enterprises' experimental projects faster than any PhD ever had. Michael stopped looking for talent. Now, he looked for people who notice what others overlook. That winter, Rosie's got new lights and a repainted sign, but the wooden table where Michael once sat remained. Faint coffee stains, Mont Blanc ink marks, and the worn edges of a turning point. Michael returned one Friday night, not in a suit, no papers in hand, just a small box. Inside, a laser-engraved card that read, "To the one who translated more than just words. ML." Grace smiled as she opened it, but said nothing. Because the words that needed saying, perhaps, had already been written into code used by millions. Outside, the rain was light. The streets shimmered under neon. Rosie's stayed open 24/7, and at one corner table 2 people sat across from each other. One who once ruled the world, the other once ignored it. But now, no one was above, no one was below. Just mutual respect, born from a throwaway comment, and sealed by 2 people finally listening.